Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. Before we start with our today's analysis, we have two important announcements. The first is in reference to the National Scholarship Test, which is scheduled to be conducted on 9th of October 2022 at 11 a.m. What is that you have to do? Link will be given in the description box. Give all the necessary information in this link and you would be able to win some attractive scholarships. The second announcement is in reference to the weekly current affairs explained session. As part of this session, tomorrow's topic discussion would be Chief of Defense Staff. Please do tune in live on our YouTube channel at 8 p.m. so that you understand everything about this topic. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says Gubernatorial procrastination is unreasonable. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. This article here is speaking about the powers of the governor. When we speak about state executive, who are all included under the state executive? What we have is the governor, followed by the council of ministers headed by the chief minister. We also have the advocate general as well. The governor is appointed by the president. He also holds office during the pleasure of the president as well, and only Indian citizens who are above 35 years of age are eligible for appointment of the governor by the president. When we speak about legislative business, we have the state legislature. The state legislature, in case they want to make a bill into an act and execute this particular act, the final assent has to be given by the governor. So what we will have is a bill. If this particular bill has to become an act, this will require the assent or the permission of the governor, the signature of the governor. But what is happening in multiple states? In multiple states, we have the governor who is not giving permission, who is not giving his signature, not assenting to this particular bill, and as a result, it is eventually not becoming an act. So this article goes on to say such powers which is given to the governor is unfortunately being misused in certain circumstances. We will try and understand, take some of the examples. We will also look at important articles with respect to the constitution. If we look into the examples, let's take the example from the state of Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, the governor forwarded the bill for exemption from the national eligibility cum entrance test to the president after considerable delay. So what we have is one such example where the bill was referred to the governor. The governor should have ideally given his assent, but what has happened? The governor has referred this bill to the president of India. Let's take another example. In Kerala, the situation has become a bit curious with the governor publicly announcing that he would not give assent to the Lokayukta Amendment Bill and the Kerala University Amendment Bill. These two instances clearly point out that a bill was referred to the governor. The governor should have come up with a suitable recommendation or should have given permission to this particular bill. It should have eventually become an act. But because the governor has not given permission, has not given assent to it, it is violating some of the core principles of democracy and constitution. Is what is this article all about? When we look into important articles from the Constitution, what we have is one of the important articles, which is Article 154 of the Indian Constitution, which speaks about executive power of the state. The executive power of the state shall be vested in the governor and shall be exercised by him either directly or through officers subordinate to him in accordance with this constitution. This has to be read with Article 163. Article 163 says, Council of Ministers to aid and advise the governor. There shall be a Council of Ministers with the Chief Minister at the head to aid and advise the governor in exercise of his functions, except in so far as he is by or under this constitution required to exercise his functions or any of them in his discretion. So whenever a particular decision has to be made, this decision will have to be taken on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So Article 163 clearly points out that you have the governor who will have the Council of Ministers who will aid him, who will give him advice, and all the decisions of the governor will have to be made on the basis of this aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. In other words, we can also say the governor can act only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. This particular stance was also confirmed by the Supreme Court of India in Shamsher Singh versus the state of Punjab. We declare the law of this branch of our constitution to be that the president and governor, custodians of all executives and other powers under various articles, shall, by virtue of these provisions, exercise their formal constitutional powers only upon and in accordance with the advice of their ministers, save in a few well-known exceptional circumstances. So what is happening here? We have the governor. The governor has to listen to the council of ministers, and all the decisions will have to be taken only on the advice of the council of ministers, except in certain exceptional circumstances. If we have to look at the debates of the Constituent Assembly, and we also have some of the important committees that have been appointed as well. What does the Constituent Assembly debate say? We have Dr. Ambedkar, who explained the position of the governor in the Constituent Assembly as follows. He says the governor under the constitution has no functions which he can discharge by himself, no functions at all. This basically means that the governor will have to listen to the council of ministers. We also have the Sarkaria Commission, which reiterates that it is a well recognized principle that so long as the council of ministers enjoy the confidence of the assembly, its advice in these matters, unless patently unconstitutional, must be deemed as binding on the governor. So in most of the circumstances, whatever the council of ministers say, the governor will have to listen to it and ultimately give assent to the legislation. How does the legislation process work? What we have to refer to is Article 200 of the Indian Constitution. What does it say? When a bill has been passed by the Legislative Assembly of a state, or in the case of a state having a legislative council, has been passed by both houses of the legislature of the state, it shall be presented to the governor, and the governor shall declare either he assents to the bill. So there are two provisions that we have to look at. One is where he gives permission, he gives signature to this particular legislation, and this bill will eventually go on to become an act. The other happens to be when he withholds the assent. We will discuss this point a bit later. But what is our focus here? The focus is he gives permission. So we have a bill. This particular bill has been sent to the governor. The governor looks into this particular bill and he ultimately gives assent. So the minute he gives assent to this particular legislation, it goes on to become an act. This is first part. But what if the governor is not happy with certain provisions? So we have multiple sections, we have multiple provisions, clauses within a particular bill. The governor is not happy with it. So what does he do? He refers this particular legislation back to the state legislature. So the state legislature will again look into it. It may follow whatever the governor has said, bring about suitable recommendations as well, or it may not bring any amendments as well and continue to persist with the same legislation and send it back to the governor. So when the legislature send it to the governor for the second time, the governor is bound to give the assent. This is what is said under the Article 200, where it says if the bill is passed again by the house or houses with or without amendment and presented to the governor for assent, the governor shall not withhold assent, which means to say it is compulsory for the governor when it is given for the second time by the state legislature, he has to compulsorily give his permission, signature, assent to this particular bill. The third point is that he may also refer a particular legislation to the president as well. So let's say we have the legislature which has referred this particular bill to the governor. The governor also is given an entitlement, is also given permission that he can refer this particular bill to the president of the country. But what is the wordings in the constitution? This particular legislation can be referred to the president when the powers of the high court are under threat. So if the council of ministers, the state legislature, plan to take away certain powers of the high court, in that case alone you may be able to produce this particular legislation to the president of the country. So what is the wording here? The wording is only if the state legislature plan to take away certain powers of the High Court. So there are powers that are given to the High Court. If they bring up a legislation where they try to take away this particular power that is given to the High Court, only then such a bill can be given to the President, says the Constitution of India. However, the Supreme Court of India has given more leverage to the governor as well, where they have given discretion to the governors in sending many other bills to the President of India. The last important point under this article is that the governor would be able to withhold the assent. The problem with this particular part is this basically does not give a timeline. Yes, the governor has the power to withhold the assent, but what is the timeline? Is he going to hold it for 1 week? Is he going to hold it for 1 month? Is he going to hold it for 6 months? What is it? This is not present in the Article 200. This is where there is a lot of ambiguity and gray area. And ultimately, the governors are misusing this discretion. Ideally, we know for the fact from Article 154 read with Article 163, whatever the legislature say, that is the Council of Ministers headed by the Chief Minister, they make an advice, the governor have to listen to the Council of Ministers. But in this particular article, we have a gray area and timeline is not fixed. So there is undue delay and the governors are not giving assent to it. This basically means that the governor is circumventing a provision of the constitution, is not respecting the democratic setup, is not respecting the ethos of the constitution, and ultimately violating the democratic setup, says this article. If we have to look at practices in multiple other countries also have this provision as well, where you would have one of the executive authorities which have to give permission, the assent, the signature to this particular legislation. If we look into United Kingdom, the royal assent is necessary for a bill to be passed by the parliament to become law, and the crown has the power to withhold the assent. But in practice, there is no power of veto exercised by the crown in England. As a result, in case they do so, it will be called as unconstitutional. If we speak about Australia, refusal of assent to a bill by the crown is considered repugnant to the federal system as well. And in United States of America, the president is empowered by the constitution to refuse an assent. And when a return of bill happens, if the house again passes it with 2/3 of each house of the bill, then it becomes a law. So this basically points out that this entire discretion that is given to the governor is not so, but he is acting as a rubber stamp. The ultimate power is given to the legislature that is headed by the chief minister. So they have to be given the permission to decide what is the legislation that they wish to implement. So what are the lessons that we can draw? So in this article, the author goes on to say that since most of the democratic countries, yes, they do have this provision, but they're not misusing it. As a result, the governor in our country should not misuse it as well. Does it mean that the governor has all the powers? This cannot be put up in the court of law? No. There are some specifications, there are some multiple cases as well where the Supreme Court has clarified that if this particular power is being misused by the governor, the same can also be clarified and the same can also be suspended by the judiciary. When you look into Article 361, it goes on to say Article 361 of the Constitution prohibits the court from initiating proceedings against the governor or the president for any act done in excess of their powers. They enjoy complete immunity from the court proceedings. However, whenever the governor is withholding the assent, he is not giving permission signature to this particular legislation. In that case, why he is not doing it has to be written. When it is written, this should not have a malified intent. If the grounds for refusal disclose malified or extraneous consideration or ultra vires, the governor's action of refusal could be struck down as constitutional. Generally, the Supreme Court will not meddle into such affairs. However, there have been some extraordinary circumstances where the governor has a malified intent. In that case, the Supreme Court would be able to strike down such a decision. This point has been settled by the Constitution Bench of the Supreme Court in Rameshwar Prasad and others versus Union of India and another, where the court held the immunity granted by Article 361 of 1 does not, however, take away the power of the court to examine the validity of action, including the ground of malefice. So this article goes on to conclude that yes, governor's office is an important office. It is a constitutional office. The governor office being a constitutional office, the chief minister being a constitutional office, the council of ministers being a constitutional office, what we require is understanding. If this understanding is constantly being violated by the governor, there has to be an end, and what we require is constitutional ethos to be followed, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Calamity-prone urban India's worrying storyline. This article here is speaking about excessive urbanization and how our cities were not planned. As a result, there have been increasing cases of floods, and whenever there are floods in our cities, the cities are not able to take care of themselves. As a result, there is economic losses that is taking place. There is suspension of the activities. All this is because the city is not able to plan, the authorities are not able to plan, and as a result, what we require is a master plan going forward. Bringing into it is the climate action plan, says this article. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. When we look into the recent instances in Bengaluru, what we have seen is the paralysis of the city because of extreme flood like conditions. We also had the most influential people being rescued by the tractor, and the lavish villas were all under water. This instance is not just restricted to Bengaluru, it is also seen in multiple other cities in the past as well. We saw that in Delhi in 2013 and 2021, Mumbai in 2005 and 2017, Chennai in 2015 and 2021, Hyderabad in 2020. All this means that Bengaluru alone was not hit by the floods, but all the main Indian cities were hit by the floods, and this also resulted in huge losses as well. If we look into the numbers, Mumbai reportedly lost 14,000 crores between 2005 and 2015, while the figure for Chennai is estimated at 15,000 crore in 2015 alone. So what we are witnessing is a constant hit to the cities. As a result, the economic activities are suspended, and when these economic activities are suspended, what the city sees is a constant hit of the damages. In this particular backdrop, the article goes on to say, in order to make sure that such instances do not occur in the near future, we have the local municipalities along with the state government. They have taken number of measures as well. However, whatever measures that they have taken considerably right now are all piecemeal approaches. What you require is an objective criterion to be drawn to ensure that this particular incident does not occur every few years. But unfortunately, whatever issues that they are taking right now are all piecemeal solutions, and this will not address the larger picture, says the author. What are the issues? Whenever there is a flood, what would happen? What we will see is a knee-jerk reaction and a politically motivated accusations. What does this politically motivated accusations? We are in power right now. This particular party was in power previously. They were the ones who spoiled it. We are at the power at the state level, but the MCD or the municipality is covered by some other political party. We do not have the power. So what you actually see is a political accusation. One political party blames another political party, but no one is ready to take up the responsibility. Added to it, there is knee-jerk reactions. What exactly happens? Let's say there is one of the area, the lavish area, which is given permission by the local authorities as well as by the state government. The building rises up, you have lavish building in that particular place, and all of a sudden they come up with a knee-jerk reaction saying ideally this particular building should not have been here, but it is these people who would have initially given permission. The local authorities would have given permission. The state government authorities would have also given all clearances as well. But once there is a flooding, they come up with accusations saying that this particular permission was given by the previous government, previous political party. We have no say in it, and ultimately what they come up with is knee-jerk reactions. And they also take some of the measures as well. That includes cleaning the river drain cleanup measures, anti-encroachment drives, stormwater network projects. All these are important. The author says these are all short-term measures. This will not address the long-term issues. So in order to address it, what we require is a master plan. As of now, we do not have a master plan for the city. Even if it did exist, it is old. It is not able to take up the incoming of the population. So what we require is a change of the master plan, says this article. So what is this master plan? When you consider the master plan, as per the World Bank, a master plan is a dynamic long-term planning document that provides a conceptual layer to guide future growth and development. Master planning is about making the connection between the buildings, social settings and their surrounding environments. A master plan includes analysis, recommendations, proposal for a site's population, economy, housing, transportation, community facilities, and land use. It is based on public input, surveys, planning initiatives, existing development, physical characteristics, social and economic conditions. If you go through the history books, what we have had is a master plan which has been historical, which has been drafted, let's say, for example, in the 1970s, 1980s. So, when this particular city, let's say Bengaluru or Chennai or Hyderabad or Delhi, when this master plan was created, it was in the 1970s and the 1980s for a particular population. The population might have been comparatively less, but because of the massive urbanization that we have seen, what these cities are not able to do is have a concurrent master plan, which means to say it was designed in 1970s and 80s, but as of now, whatever master plan was designed in 1970s and 80s is not accurate for 2022. So we have lack of master plans for major cities in India. Even if we had one, that is not able to absorb the excessive population that we currently have in Bengaluru, Mumbai, Delhi, so on and so forth. So the author says, as of now, we do not have a proper master plan. So what we require is a master plan which is able to take into picture ecology, geography, demographics, transportation, social needs, waste management, education, healthcare, so on and so forth. So this article currently goes on to say that Bengaluru has not had a master plan to control its development since 2015 and is unlikely to get a new one before 2025. Across India, 65% of urban settlements do not have a master plan. Where these exist, they usually not address issues of environmental protection or talk about climate change mitigation, despite the lack of capacity and bandwidth in the state governments to undertake this exercise. Powers to prepare master plans remain with the state governments, with city governments reduced to stakeholders without much authority. What do we mean by it? We have the local government, which is the municipality. They should ultimately bring about a master plan in consultation with the state governments, but they do not have the powers, they do not have the financial advantages. They have to bow down in front of the state governments, but the state governments is always into this particular mode of election, so on and so forth, and they're least bothered what is happening at the city level. The local governments are supposed to take care, they have the municipal body, but the municipal body does not have the power and the authority, and they have to bow down in front of the state governments, and that has become the major issue. While some city administration have developed drainage, flood mitigation plans, these do not have statutory backing such as the master plan. Even if they have come up with a plan, what it requires is a statutory backing. Why do we require a statutory backing? That is because we have one political party today. This political party may have come up with a plan. They may execute this particular plan for 2 years, 3 years. Then there might be a new political party. The political party which comes in new may squash this particular plan as well. But if there is a law, what we will have is the continuity of this particular plan. So the author in this particular says, goes on to say that we do not have enough number of laws to plan this master plan and implement it. When you consider Bengaluru and Delhi, the drainage master plan for Delhi was drafted 46 years ago in 1976, and the new plan is only being just implemented. In the case of Bengaluru, the drain lines as per 2015 master plan were significantly from the drains mapped by the municipalities. So even if we have them, they are not meeting the intended standards, says this article. So what are the issues that we currently have? We have number of cities. The number of cities have their own plans as well. If we take the example of Mumbai, the Mumbai plan is particularly ambitious, covering all aspects of city's environment from flooding to air pollution, and aligns itself with the national goal of net zero emissions as well. But they do not have a statutory backing. Once they do not have the statutory backing in the form of law, that will be a major issue. Then what you also require is a regulatory body who will control what, which department will control what, who will have the finances, who will execute it, which body will lay the foundation for what? All this has to be provided under the statutory law. But we do not have a statutory backing. We do not have a regulatory policy as well. This has become a major problem. Added to it, these plans are usually an expert-driven endeavor without the critical element of public participation. What does this mean? This means that most of these plans are drafted only by the experts, but then you also require the participatory approach. This participatory approach basically means that you have to take the viewpoints of the people in that particular city. You have to conduct surveys as well. This has to be a bottom-up approach rather than the top-down approach, says the author. So what you require is a larger consultation with the people, take them into this particular policy making, and ultimately come up with the policy. So what is needed is the creation of a comprehensive climate action plan for all Indian cities, and to give these plans statutory backing by bringing them within the ambit of the city's master plan. This would also institutionalize process such as public consultation within the plan preparation process. Beyond giving it the credibility to withstand administrative and political opposition, consultations will be effective in highlighting underserved neighbors as well. Whenever there is a flood, what would happen? You would have the media which would always showcase the posh areas of the city where you have rich politicians, the businessmen, so on and so forth. But it fails to highlight the poor ranked sections of the society. So this article also says such areas where it is hardly met with basic amenities, those also have to be highlighted in this master plan as well. Further, there is need for Environmental Protection Agency to proactively tackle issues related to the climate change. So whenever you're drafting a master plan, ensure that you also take climate change into picture. The floods that are occurring in multiple cities is also because of climate change as well. So when you're drafting a master plan, ensure that you add climate change also into this. So this article basically highlights that we have issues at the urban level. So what we have to do is plan for the next 100, 200, 300 years by coming up with a master plan. This master plan will have to make sure that it integrates the climate change into it, and it should also be able to absorb excessive population that is anticipated in the near future. If we are able to add these two criterion into the master plan, we would be able to comparatively mitigate the impact of flooding, says this article. And do note, we already have a video on urban flooding which is already recorded under our knowledge series. Please do look into that video to understand a broader picture of urban flooding. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Nobel for work on click chemistry and quantum mechanics. The article here is speaking about Nobel Prize which was awarded to personalities in the area of chemistry as well as physics. First we will understand a bit with respect to chemistry, then we will understand with respect to physics. For the year 2022, Nobel Prize in Chemistry has been awarded to Caroline Bertozzi, Mortan Meldal as well as K. Berry Sharpless, and this is for the work that they have done in click chemistry and bioorthogonal chemistry. So the first question that we have to understand is, what is this click chemistry? Why does it being called as the click chemistry? Before that, we have to remember that Barry Sharpless happens to be one of the chemist who's got the Nobel Award for the second time. So he happens to be the fifth person who's getting this award for the second time. In simple terms, click chemistry is a functional field where molecules snap together quickly and efficiently, literally like the click as shown in this image. So you will have one molecule, the second molecule, the third molecule. All these molecules are joined together. When they join, they create called as click, and that is why it is called as the click chemistry. So this is not a reaction, a concept where two molecules or more connect together to become what is called as the bigger molecule. In this particular experiment, you had the acid, you also had an alkyne as well, and they were brought together by the copper ions, and ultimately they came up with what is called as the triazole. What are the applications of this click chemistry? It is used to explore the cells, map the DNA, and design drugs that can target diseases such as the cancer more precisely. This happens to be the applications with respect to the click chemistry. Next, what we have is called as the bioorthogonal, where Bertozzi fed cells with a modified sugar with an acid on it. The acid functioned as a type of molecular handle. The modified sugar was incorporated into the glycans, special carbonates located on the surface of the cells. Then Bertozzi used an alkyne that was forced into a ring-shaped molecule. The alkyne clicked the acid. A fluorescent green molecule sat on the ring-shaped molecule. This allowed Bertozzi to track the glycans on the cell surfaces. So this basically is another experiment that was conducted by Bertozzi, where she was able to achieve her task. So chemists often try to create complex chemical molecules found in the nature, and this has multiple applications in the field of medicine, how to target and block the pathogens in the cell. And this is a time consuming process, and this time consuming process is now reduced because of such an experiment. This is to do with Nobel Prize for the chemistry. However, when you consider for the physics, it is being shared by three scientists. One, it includes John F. Clauser. Second happens to be Alain Aspect. Third happens to be Anton Zeilinger. What the scientists work on? The three conducted experiments on something called as entangled quantum states. This quantum entanglement is a phenomenon by which a pair of particles, let's say for example photons, are allowed to exist in a shared state where they have complementary properties, such that by measuring the property of one particle, you automatically know the properties of other particle. So remember, when it comes to physics, it was given for entangled quantum states, which is to do with quantum mechanics. When it comes to chemistry, it was to do with click chemistry. Now let's look into the next article. This article says White House calls OPEC Plus supply cut move short-sighted. Let us try and understand what is this article all about. First, we have to know the difference between OPEC and OPEC Plus. OPEC Plus refers to a group of 23 oil-producing countries that includes 13 members of OPEC. So we have OPEC countries, which include Saudi Arabia, UAE, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Algeria, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Libya, Nigeria, Republic of Congo, and Venezuela. If you add other countries plus 10 countries, that becomes OPEC plus. The other 10 oil producing countries include Russia, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Brunei, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Mexico, Oman, South Sudan, and Sudan. What we have is Saudi Arabia, which happens to be the largest oil producer among the OPEC members. The objective of OPEC is to coordinate and unify the petroleum policies of the member countries and ensure the stabilization of oil markets in order to secure efficient, economic and regular supply of petroleum to consumers, a steady income to the producers, and a fair return on capital for those investing in the petroleum industry. So what is this article speaking about? The group of OPEC plus countries have now decided to cut oil production by about 2 million barrels per day. Why are they planning to cut down on the production of oil? That is because as of now, they basically believe that when it comes to multiple countries, they are not importing a lot of oil. Let's say, for example, China is not importing a lot of oil. That is because of the COVID limitations that have been imposed in China. Europe is also going to witness recession as well. So even it is not importing a lot of oil. As a result, these countries basically believe that if they continue with the same level of production, they would not be able to get the profits, they would not be able to get the return on the investments. So if they cut down on the production, what they'll be able to increase is the same amount of oil for a particular higher price. As a result, they have now decided they have to cut down on the production by about 2 million barrels per day so that they get profits from the oil. So they are slashing the production. That is because they basically believe that there is a faltering global economy. This would reduce the demand for the oil, and the cuts are the only ways to protect their profits. And now we have United States of America, which has said that this particular decision of the OPEC Plus is not going to help the countries, says the United States of America. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. This article says the impossible trinity. This article in a greater detail will be discussed in the economy this week. However, what is this impossible trinity? This basically includes that we cannot always have an independent monetary policy, maintain a fixed exchange rate, and allow free flow of capital across its borders at the same time is what is called as the impossible trinity. So you will have to compromise on one front. You cannot achieve all the three, says this impossible trinity. So what is the trinity includes? It includes monetary policy, fixed exchange rate, as well as free flow of capital. This can be important from the preliminary examination point of view, but to give you a larger picture, what you have to listen to is the economy this week. Now let's look into the mains practice questions. A delay in discharge of gubernatorial functions goes against the democratic setup. Explain the statement with relevant examples. Next question. Discuss the causes of urban flooding in India and elucidate the need for a master plan and a comprehensive climate action strategy. Please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and do give positive feedback to your friends' answers. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.